when did you sense that this wasn't, this was beginning to look like something other than an orderly prescribed burn?
Well, my sense for that wasn't until after it had jumped the highway. At that point, we had some trees torch. There was enough heat in there that it torched up a few of the standing jack pine, and that threw spots across the highway. So once the fire had gotten across the highway, then there was a heightened sense of urgency that we need to catch this thing now. And in fact, the first spots across the highway we did catch. And at that point, the tractor had come back from pulling out the disabled engine, had crossed the highway, and had put a couple of lines, a double line around these first spots that we had picked up across the highway. However, the wind had picked up at that point that the highway was smoke covered from the prescribed burn. And it was, visibility was quite low. In fact, trying to turn around a large engine on the highway was problematic because we couldn't see if there was any traffic coming. And the fear was that somebody would overdrive their visibility in the smoke. So when I heard about a second spot that further north along the highway, we were facing the wrong direction and had to get turned around in the smoke. And so it was a little bit frustrating getting turned around quickly because we were concerned about being nose out into the highway and have somebody come through and bash their car into us. So that was a little bit frustrating. So that second spot kind of got the lead on us, although the tractor responded right away and was actually on that spot more quickly than we were. But at that point, my mindset, and I think for most of us, was this is getting difficult. We really got to get these spots, across the highway. We were a little bit surprised about having them across the highway, first of all. And second of all, they, we wanted to put them out.
The district ranger is walking behind Swidersky's tractor plow, patrolling the line, with Mike Harnoy's 1,000-gallon engine following them. Around this time, 30 minutes past noon, the burn boss calls for more reinforcements. He also orders an aerial spotter. It is decided that the district ranger will serve as this aerial observer with the pilot. Before leaving for the airfield, the district ranger gives his portable radio to the burn boss, whose own radio has stopped working. Because no government vehicles are available, the ranger hitches a ride with a passing motorist. When the ranger leaves, no replacement is assigned to work as helper spotter with Swidersky on the tractor plow. Swidersky, now alone on the tractor plow, and Harnoy and Hahn with the 1,000-gallon engine, continue east along the escaped fire, plowing and laying down wet line.
I didn't have direct visual contact with Jim in any meaningful sense at that point, because I was concentrating on what was ahead. And of course, the fire behavior continued to increase. And, like even when you're anticipating something like that, it takes a while for that to penetrate, to say, wait a minute, this fire is still really going. And in fact, it began to crown not far from where we were, to our right, to the south. And it started getting hot. I mean, you could feel the radiant heat. I could feel it in the cab, and Tom, the nozzleman, was feeling it. In fact, I looked out the rear window at one point, and he was turning the hose on himself. And at that point, it kind of sunk in that this wasn't working, that we were not being effective. Yeah, we were knocking down the edge of the fire, but it was getting up into the crowns not very far away from that. And also at that point, it seemed like the fire would move at right angles to, you know, it was going eastward, but then it would increase in intensity and the smoke would roll over the top of us. And it seemed as though we were on the front of the fire now instead of a flank. And plus the fact that we were getting into thicker timber and it wasn't working, the realization hit that this wasn't working, this wasn't a safe place to be. If Tom is hosing himself down, you know, the radiant heat is too much, and we weren't catching it. We weren't turning the corner. We didn't see the head of the fire at that point. It was gone. And when I radioed that we were breaking off the attack, I didn't wait for an acknowledgement or anything. I just turned to try and get out of there.
Sure.
I started turning to the left, to the north. And again, it wasn't a very quick turn because at that point I had quite a bit of timber between the wheels. I don't know, 2, 3, 4 trees at a time, because we were pushing down pines. I'm still worried about the scattered oak that were in there. So again, I'm looking above the pine crowns to try and detect an oak crown soon enough that I don't end up with a bumper up against an oak tree. And we eventually did get turned around and go to the north, and it seemed at that point that the fire had shifted to a northerly direction. My assumption at that point was that everybody heard my radio transmission, even though it wasn't acknowledged. That was a poor assumption, I think, in hindsight, because later on we learned that the antenna on the truck had been torn off. I don't know if it was before or after, during that, you know, when I made that transmission. At the time that I made that turn, you know, I was thinking we were closer to the head of the fire and towards more active fire, and that anybody behind us would be in better shape, in less jeopardy. So at that point, you know, I was just trying to get out of the way of the fire.
Sure.
And not really thinking too much about getting anybody else out at that point. I'll admit it, I was scared at that point.
When the Crown Fire forces Mike Harnoy to retreat in the 1,000-gallon engine, he assumes that Jim Swidersky is doing the same back behind him on the tractor plow. Sometime around 3 o'clock, after the smoke clears, the spotter plane sights Jim's burned tractor plow. Next, the spotter plane personnel think they see Jim's body. Jim Swidersky's workmate and good friend Randy Marzolo is looking for him, on foot, on the ground. Approximately 300 feet from the tractor plow, Marzolo finds Jim's burned body.
It surprised myself a little bit because I was one that gets in to look for Jim, which I did locate him. But what I surprised myself was that I was surprised I did not panic. I kept my head even when I left that area, and people were concerned about my mental well-being after that. But I didn't have any problems with that, and I was surprised that I could handle that pretty well, I thought. I did not have any counseling. I mean, I had friends come over to the house. I finally got in wee hours in the morning, and all I wanted to do was sleep because I was tired. And yet I hear knocking on the door, and people were checking on me to see if I was okay, because I was by myself. It's like, okay, but I really want to sleep, you know. That's all I wanted to do, to get some rest and be on the next day. But other than that, I didn't feel I had any other problems.
The fire shelter that normally hung from hooks on the tractor plow's protective screen behind the driver was never found in the burned vehicle or anywhere. Some believe that Jim might have tried to open it as he attempted to flee the flames, but the winds blew it into the fire where it was consumed. Within 6 hours, this planned prescribed fire escapes, burns 24,000 acres, evacuates a community, destroys 44 homes, and, tragically, takes a firefighter's life.
Situational awareness, it may not be enough. The anticipation of changes, particularly with fire behavior, is necessary, because even in the case of the Mac Lake fire, it transitioned so rapidly that our situational awareness, had it been instant, might have made a difference. Might have made a difference. I'm not sure that it would have necessarily been a difference between life and death. But if you can anticipate those kinds of changes, you're so much better off, because you're at least looking for them. Yeah, we had problems that led up to the escape, none of which were unique, things that we can all expect to have. And at some point, the cumulative effect of all those was the escape fire and the fatality. We made some tactical mistakes in attacking that spot, which most days probably would have worked, but that particular day didn't, and we didn't recognize it soon enough. In 20-some years hindsight, that's kind of what I'm looking at with Mac Lake.
Lesson number one is that in the spring of the year, this can go from almost nothing or an easily suppressed fire to something that's off and running in just a matter of minutes. And that you need to be thinking about that the whole time you're out there. In my humble opinion, we lost 2 people that day. The tractor operator that died, and the district ranger who later died from cancer. I think that the fire really weighed on him very heavily.
I'm hoping that we've learned something from Mac Lake. In the School of Hard Knocks, we paid a high tuition that day in losing Jim. And I want to make sure that we learn as many lessons as we can from that incident to avoid repeating it again.
When wildland firefighters follow these 5 HRO principles of mindful organizing, they are less likely to look primarily for confirmation of their original plans, misestimate the complexity of events, treat unexpected deviations as normal, develop tunnel vision under pressure, discount worst-case scenarios, and underestimate the rate of change. Now that you know a little more about these HRO concepts, hopefully you'll want to learn even more about using this high reliability tool. There's no question that HRO can help you improve your skills to better anticipate and contain the unexpected events that will always await you out in the wildland fire environment. From this point forward, each time you venture out into the wildland fire environment, please remember and honor Jim Swidersky and the precious lessons that his untimely and tragic death now provide you.